we need to discuss the mess that is going on in Philadelphia right now. It looked like James Harden was out the door, pushing his way out once again. And then it looked like he was staying. And now he has just caused an absolute mess between himself and Daryl Morey. And looks like he is very much trying to get himself on the way out one way or another. We'll start with you, Tyrik. How do you feel about the situation? Is anyone in the right? Is anyone in the wrong? Or is it just all a collective mess over in Philly?
I think the best way to describe it is just a collective mess, bro. Like, when I first saw that video, I really thought it was like AI generated. Like, I was really convinced. That's why I didn't feed into it. But then I seen Shams reported it, and I seen like 5 different angles. I'm like, oh, he actually said that. Which is funny to do it at like a camp where kids are just there to see one of their favorite players. It's kind of funny, but it is drama, and it's Philadelphia. And that's really just what it's been there for like the last decade. It's always been a mess. So, I don't know really what to make of it, to be honest. They plan on James being there, but it's clear that he doesn't want to be. So how is that going to work? Is this just another Ben Simmons situation? It might be. It just makes me wonder why he even decided to opt back in the first place when he could have just opted out, picked where he went, and, he could have avoided this entire situation. Now he's basically being held hostage. Could be for this next season that like they could just, keep him. He might not play, but they don't have to move off of him if they don't want to. So it's a collective mess. Who knows what this means for the future? If Joel Embiid ends up requesting out, who knows what's going to happen. But, it's Philadelphia. They just continue to not be able to capitalize on the play that they've had from Joel, of the ascension of Tyrese Maxey, bringing in another all-star, superstar caliber player in James Harden. It's just a mess, man, and it's unfortunate to see, to be honest.
Yeah, the way that he said that at that camp, like, I can really see why you say AI generated, because he was like, I repeat, I will not be a part of any organization that Daryl Morey is a part of. He is a liar. I'm like, yeah, that's got to be fake. And when you because you quote tweeted it and you were like, yeah, I thought this was AI generated. I watched it and I thought you were being legit. Like, I'm like, this got to be fake, bro. So then later in the day, I see Shams reported it, and I'm for real, no way he actually said that. And Philly's screwed, bro. To me, it's over. There's really no coming back from this, because this whole process era, we've now been through 3 different iterations of this falling apart. I'm going to say they built up, but then they had what I'll call the Jimmy Butler era, which was very short-lived, but a very good team. And then they just try to really get it with the returns they got from that, added in Tobias as the main third guy, and then, just Simmons and Embiid really is the main duo. And then they changed it up to this Embiid and Harden thing, and now all 3 iterations of this team have really failed. And now you're stuck with an Embiid in his prime who keeps having a rotating cast of support pieces, and it's not working out. It's not working out. And without that consistency there, and with Embiid's co-star wanting out every 2 seasons, you just can't put a championship contender together. So it puts them in a situation where I don't even know how long the Embiid era is going to last around here, because he can't keep doing this forever. He's a big man on a limited timetable, because we know he's a bit prone to injuries, and that can cause big men to devalue a little bit quicker. They got to get something done, and I don't know what that is.
It's a weird spot in the NBA now where we're talking about a guy like James Harden who wants to leave, and he decides his best way to do so is to opt into his contract and ask out. It's such a weird spot with where free agency and just asking for trades is. And that's the biggest thing, and why like you said, Tyrik, I think it's just a collective mess. I especially can't get behind the reasoning of saying that this is fully on the 76ers front office and James Harden is completely in the right here, because you could have been a free agent. You could have just left. And the fact that, sure, you might have opted in, you might have been granted certain assurances earlier in the summer, you might have been told you were going to get a bag when you took your pay cut, whatever it may be. Point being, we know that backs are betrayed and things are not held to the word that they are given throughout the league, whether that be to players, whether that be to front offices from players. We've seen it time and time again. Loyalty does not exist 99.9% of the time in this league. Word of mouth and trust does not exist most of the time in this league, and that's no different here. And it's just in a situation now where Harden's put himself in a weird spot, Philly's put themselves in a weird spot, And like you guys have alluded to, I mean, they have some flexibility next offseason because they're going to have a ton of cap space. So maybe they can bring in someone, although their options are very limited outside of potentially Pascal Siakam if the Raptors are stupid enough to not extend him or trade him. But that's a whole other story that me and Gabe could rant about for 30 minutes. So we'll save that for another day. Point being, they have very few options, and they're now in a spot where either we know what Harden looks like if he comes back and plays on a team that he's not interested in playing in. We've already seen that in Houston. It's just not going to be a good time for Philly. It's not going to be productive for them. And if not, if they feel like they need to move him, whatever his trade value was 5 days ago, it's probably 20 to 30% less now. So they just got put in a really tough spot. And like you guys say, it definitely jeopardizes what could potentially happen with Embiid moving forward as well.
Yeah. Calling Daryl Morey a liar is just like kind of out of nowhere. It makes you wonder, like, what was said behind closed doors. Was Harden promised something like a trade to the Clippers or wherever he wanted to go? Really makes you wonder because those guys have had it seemed like a strong relationship over the last, decade pretty much, because Morey was in Houston for quite some time. So it really just makes you wonder, like, what was said. I wonder if those reports will ever come out. But, where does Philadelphia go now? I really don't know, man. I mean, they were a game away from the conference finals 2 of the last 3 years, or really like 3 out of the last 5. Like, they've had a ton of opportunities in this Embiid era. It makes you wonder if they'll have to make the bold decision at some point in time to give up on Embiid and just trade him away so you can get something of value in return. Because like Gabe said, which is a very good point, even though he's been more healthy over the last couple of years compared to the early part of his career, his days are still numbered in this league because he's a 7-foot-plus big, almost 300 pounds, and he already has an injury history. That just doesn't bode well. Your timetable's pretty limited. So the next, I would say 12 to 18 months are going to be a very interesting time. It's always interesting in Philly, but even more so now because we might be getting to the time where it's like, is Embiid going to ask out or are they going to move off of him?
Yeah, and I really thought was going to comment, let's respond to this. If Embiid were moved to Philly location, yeah, that really was not looking good for them, mixed with his comments that I seem to bring up all the time of him talking about, like, oh, I want to win a championship, whether that's in Philly or elsewhere. Like, this guy wants to win, and the leverage situation is so weird to me with James Harden because on one end you have that, oh, like, James Harden just took the leverage by really, like, calling them out and kind of taking matters into his own hands and saying, like, I'm definitely not coming back, so they have to trade me. But then there also is that leverage of he opted in. They don't have to trade him. It's not like he can just leave this offseason, like, just for nothing. And so I'm not really sure how that works. And at that point, you wasted a year of Embiid. Like, you think Embiid's just going to sit there and take that? Because really, I think the goal for this year, as of 2 months ago, was going to be, okay, we got rid of the coach who everybody kind of agreed was a choker, and they got to, like, a game away from the conference finals and choked a bunch of times. And so they're like, okay, this is a pattern with Doc Rivers-led teams. Let's get off him and let's go elsewhere. And regardless of how you feel about the Nick Nurse hire, it is elsewhere, and it is a coach who has won a championship. So it's like, all right, let's run it back because we do have a lot of talent, and let's see if we can get further because the East has some strong teams, but when you have an MVP-level player, a playmaker like James Harden and a scorer like Tyrese Maxey with the supporting cast they have, I think you definitely always have a chance. But now that you get into this situation, either James Harden's value is too low and the return you get back does not keep you as that level of team, or you can't find a trade for him, and that's just production that's missing because you're either getting not a lot back or you just have nothing there. It's just dead weight.